Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another insightful, meaningful episode of the podcast, You Are the Medicine. I'm your host, Dr. Jessica Chichester, co owner of Haute Healing Oasis Wellness Center, located in Stamford, Connecticut. And today I have somebody incredibly unique, important, and just somebody I'm really looking forward to sharing with you today. His name is Hachumuck. So Hachumuck is a medicine man from Peru. He operates between the north and the jungle, and he travels a lot. And actually, it was years ago at Haute Healing Oasis, one of our members had really powerful healing sessions with Hachumuck. And she kept on saying to me, Jessica, you need to meet this man and see what I mean, because the people that he's connected with in this healing space, they've gone through miracles, and she had her own miracle of a testimony. So at that point, I met Hachumuck, and we really connected. Peter and myself really connected with him, and I had my own healing session, and it was so impactful for me. I always say that every time he comes into this area and comes to our business, it's almost like this big wind comes by and it just cleans up house. I don't know how else to explain it, but a lot of things in my life tend to move and shake when we connect. He doesn't come to this area, Stamford, Connecticut, often, but he does travel around quite a bit. And his role is really bridging the gap between the Western world and the Western mindset, but also explaining what spirit is and the traditional ways of plants and of plant medicine. So he recently wrote a book, Journeying Through the Invisible, and we're going to talk about that book today. So Hachumuck, it's so good to have you with us today. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
So, what inspired you to write the book, Journey Through the Invisible?
Well, thank you. Thank you for the introduction. The book, I didn't have the idea to write the book for, a long time, but people that were coming to my place in the jungle to do the plants with me, for years I was hearing, oh, you have to write a book, you have to explain these things. I hope I knew this before I did the plants. I hope I understood these things about the language of the visions, so I could have understood better my experience in the past. I have had a fair amount of people coming to work with me in Peru, and as you know, I only do the plants in Peru.
Mm-hmm.
And several of the people that came have been kind of quite seasoned, experienced, with the plants and taking what can be called shamanic services, if you want, for a while. And when people come, I try to replicate what I did with my teachers, which is basically a slow pace, old school way. So we were hanging out together for some days before assessing a ceremony with the plants, which I believe has to be prescribed, and instead of selling tickets, you have to understand who you have with. And I explain a lot about the traditional mindset, the way to understand this approach of extremely subtle perceptions. I explain about the language of the plants, the kind of explanations that I received myself when I was training. I didn't do a plant ceremony with a experienced teacher until after probably 2 years and a half or 3 years of being told to do other type of practices like fastings and going to sacred spaces, spending the night alone, connecting with animals, sitting and using and ask for inspiration for regular medicinal plants for body ailments before the sacred plants. So I kind of make like a slow understanding. I try to communicate information. So when people are there, besides being only focused on their own problems, which is extremely important, They also put themselves in a kind of humble angle to receive and be conducted and follow things. And also, the language of the vision is a language based on the language of poetry, which is the language of the soul and the dreams. And this is a language that we have lost a lot of training in the modern societies because everything is rational and conceptual. So that kind of more dreamy, poetic, metaphorical language seems to be very strange. And we have lost a lot of the clues of that language. So basically, I have been told for years that I should try to explain these things on the book for basically the international community that is approaching the plants. And although I had known for many years the strong lockdowns that happened in Peru during COVID, that stop absolutely the possibility of doing my regular work and even traveling in my country, somehow gave me a bracket that I was in my living room with all these notes, and I could kind of put up the book, and I did it. And I have to give a lot of credit to the other name that appears on the book, which is David Carroll, a friend and patient, ex-patient of myself, who is an amazing writer, and he helped me to put it in proper English. We were going back and forth through calls and Zooms and exchanging text, so he could help me to polish and explain better what I wanted to be.
Wow. So what I'm hearing from you is when people come down to do the medicines with you, right? You allow a slow acclimation into the environment where people can connect with themselves, with the earth, with the plants, just go a little bit slower before you feel into which medicine is good for them or which angle is good for them to receive healing from. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yeah, that's what it is. And I we need to break the quick pace, of the expectations of this modern society that has a completely different rhythm, that the traditional self-observancy and patience. So the work with the sacred plants belong to a certain way of seeing the world and understanding the world, and a certain way to place ourselves in the middle of creation. So we have to recreate that a little bit in order to connect with the subtle elements of the healing, which are beyond chemicals of the plants. And I'm extremely, if you want, strong on that point.
But so what I'm hearing also is like, and I remember you had said this to me one time in a text when we were talking. I forgot what it was about, but I remember you said like, well, the jungle has its own timing. And we're so used to this Western world and carving out time and making things happen. And it sounds like when somebody goes into the jungle to work with you, it's about their body, their energy system, their mind, their spirit, kind of falling into the poetic patterns of nature before they even participate into plant medicine.
Yeah, there's some of that. Usually I do the plants probably at the third or fourth day that people have come. On another hand, I have to understand that because of the strong pace and the requirements of modern society, a lot of people don't have the time to live on a longer retreat, and for the people who have to leave their job and their families and come on a respectful quest of sanity and healing, sometimes they only have 4 or 5 days. And there's people who offer other settings for giving the medicine plants, and they offer the more the better, every night or in a very kind of short pace or every 2 days. I don't work like that. I can I can only be respectful of other approaches. Basically, you never know how people handle the energies in the invisible, which is the core of the healing. But I only offer what I know it works, and what worked for me is the only honest thing you can do. And I have very good feedback from my work, and I think people get not only the benefit of the plants themselves, but a lot of other time of inspiration and self-discovery around it, because everything is about being, submit to the rhythms and the forces of creation that we have turned our backs to.
Yeah. So can you share a brief overview of your book, Journey Through the Invisible, and some of the main themes?
The book is share of experiences and understandings and protocols. I will say it has probably 4 main parts. The book has 9 chapters. In the beginning, there are some biographical stories. I was a little shy to speak about myself, but basically David Carroll told me that I should kind of introduce more things. So I tell some stories about my training, but I use them to explain later some of the great principles of this way of seeing the world, in which everything is alive, the landscape is alive, everything is life, minerals are life, clouds are life. And then there is another part when I explain, I consider that to be a important contribution of the book. I explain a different frame of understanding the internal structure of consciousness that comes from my experience, what I have observed, and what I have come through messages and working with the spirits. And some people find it interesting. I define the concept of suffering consciousness, soul consciousness, internal placement, which is basically the way you are positioned when you experience something that comes from the outside. Whatever is gratifying or challenging, it sits on us in a different way, and we digest it on a different way. The suffering consciousness is the space where all the healing happens. It can be defined as the negative ego. Although I go a little, not fully extensive in the book because of the size of the book. I mean, the book was, when we spoke with the people of Harper's Wave, we were great. We kind of spoke about 250 pages. We have delivered almost 400 pages. And even I feel a lot of things were too succinct. So one part is a more this, if you want, philosophical, psychological frame for understanding ourselves. That's kind of a second part of the book, from a natural experiencing energies understanding. There is another important part that speaks, yes, about the protocols with the sacred plants. And I'm doing this because of the questions and requirements that some of my clients have, So I explain about the spirits of the plants, how they like to work, how they like to associate with humans, what is the kind of the payback of what they get in return. And from helping us, I speak about the ancient covenants between humans and the vegetal world. Some things about the way of proceeding on a ceremony of the plants, the way I learn. Again, there are multiple ways for sure. But when I explain about something, what to do things on a certain way, I also try to give the principles behind it. There might be other ways. Some of them might be founded in some other principles. Some others I find that they are found on the just empty replication of whatever somebody taught, and so there's some degradation of the protocols around, I believe. And I explained about the different spirits. It's a part that has a lot of information about how to navigate not only the ceremony with the plants, but invisible world too. And then there is a fourth part that I get a lot of return, some supporting return and some kind of defying return, when I speak about the negative, dangerous, misuse and bad tricks that are around this profession, that a lot of the people that are coming to Peru or assessing the work with the shamans or facilitators or medicine people are basically the whole spectrum from being scammed to wrong protocols or wrong ways of proceeding that produce collateral damage. That's a very interesting point to debate, because I firmly believe that the plants, the sacred plants, are here to stay. They are going to become a part of our modern civilization, and they are going to land in different ways, sometimes on a good way, sometimes on a bad way. Sometimes the beautiful sacred plants that are here to help us and teach us are going to be enslaved again, the same way we have enslaved other species and spirits. So it's kind of my 2 cents on the map, about how to work properly with the plants and try to help our modern world to figure out better how to take this amazing opportunity. They have came to knock at the doors of humanity again. It's not an accident. It's not just like a like accidental renaissance what we are witnessing right now. It's not by accident. I'm not even sure if it should be called a renaissance, because sometimes it's really so ill taken and some selfish taken again. And I'm happy to develop more that subject. So that's an interesting chapter. I explain a lot of the bad tricks that are happening in Peru to surprising shamanic tourists too.
Yeah, because and I love that you added that in your book. I haven't found that really in any book talking about the plants and plant medicine, and there's so many books about what the experience is like and what you can see and what a psychedelic trip is and why people see snakes, that sort of thing. But nobody from my research has really gone into the nuts and bolts, the specifics on how the plants want to be treated, how the plants express themselves in our body, what they give back to us, what we give back to them. But so I felt that point, that part in the book was almost like you were giving us like an encyclopedia of of spirit and consciousness of the plant to help us understand. So I thought that was really interesting and unique. And I also, the fact that you're holding up such a strong mirror about what is happening right now. Because this resurrection for us, this Western resurrection of all the plant medicines, people are, I've seen it. I was about to be a part of it. One of those people that just ran to Peru with a group, not even knowing, like ready to risk my life and maybe my, everything that I have, just because I needed this healing. I could have been walking into the wrong hands. I'm so happy that spirit stopped me. And this happened in my life a couple of times. Mm-hmm. So, and in hearing some of the, not to scare anybody, but literally like some of the horror stories of people really being broken down in spirit, wanting to go do the plant medicines for real transformation, and then coming back home and they're in more of a broken state than they were when they had previously left. Why? Because there is such a misuse of the plants, because it goes to your point earlier, and we were talking yesterday, because so many places are just apt to selling tickets, and they know that they can capitalize on this instead of really creating like what you do and this safe container for this safe, small, sacred container where real healing we could submerge ourselves in it. So
yeah. I mean, there's several important points there. First of all, nature teaches a lot through tough love. It's all around if we can observe the natural process, and it's beautiful to happen, and we need it to. So the approach that everything is perfect and everything is nice belongs to a different kind of, if you want, let's use the word shamanic for ancient medicine. For a different type of shamanic approach, that the one that is really to produce transformation. If you want transformation, you have to really go deep into the swamps, of your dark side, with the help and with the love and the wisdom of a contained space and the presence of the master plants. But you have to be ready to look yourself with honesty in the mirror, and that sometimes is tough. If you treat strong cases like addictions or strong suicidal, self-destructive behaviors. Tough love, there's nothing better than that. Of course, dosed by the medicine working happy as a kind of a health party in a ceremony, not just a projection of the shaman own suffering consciousness, you know. So tough love is a really an important medicine, as an important facet of the medicine. And in that sense, if you really want to go deeply into an honest look at the mirror, and people want to get into transformative process, you have to certainly face things that you would try to avoid consciously. And then there's no other way that nature really will corner you at that point. I also believe that most of the people that are giving the plants around are come from a good place. They are trying to do the right thing, and they are trying to share with the world something that they found was amazing and healing and loving. But sometimes I think we lack in modern times of the strictness, or to be strict, I don't know how to say it exactly, and to really hear what the spirits want and not what we want or the way we want. And that commercially is not too great, if you want, because things have, this type of healing has been always conceived to be done in small amounts in a contained place.
Like a small group.
A small group, slow flow, good recovery, space for not only the medicine person, but space for the plants. It cannot be as fast food shamanism.
No.
Nor as a buffet of different shamanic products, you know, on a kind of a structured way in a short time. I'm a little radical on that point, but we are speaking about opinions and experience, and I have mine. And I can see around, because I see a lot of people who come to work with me just recently, very heavy cases with people who went with the best wishes, investing their time and money and putting their hope on the table, and they came out extremely damaged. Just for what I consider was improper work. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I'm a little opinionated in those things, but I cannot help seeing happening. It's just like, it's there. I'm happy. I hear it. People tell me their experiences. And I will say that probably we need to hear more what the spirits want. And there are different nations and traditions in Peru. Peru is like a continental country that contains many different nations. So sometimes what works with a certain group also is totally different from another one. And people are sometimes patching things from here and there. So I mean, there's the whole palette of possibilities are there, and from right to wrong. But it's important to discuss and not be too dogmatic.
So I really can't agree with you more in terms of going slow with the process, having a small group in a sacred container with really listening to what the needs are and creating that setting, that safety, so people can digest what is happening in the process. Because oh my gosh, there's so many people, there's so many groups. I mean, in all of my years of researching this, there's people on, you know, some people that I even follow on YouTube, right? Go 4 days to this place in Costa Rica, and they're going to be the ones administering the medicine. And in the 4 days, you're going to do the plants 4 times, and then you go on a plane and you go home. Like, that's not the way that it's done. There needs to be space for healing. So as much as the plant is the medicine, the time is the medicine, the container, the earth, the people, the support systems, all the different ways of integration, that is the medicine. And that's actually Hachumuck, that's actually how I came up with the name for this podcast. Was after the whole ayahuasca trip that we went on to Ecuador in a very small container. And at the end of the 8 days, I was kind of scratching my head, and I was like thinking to myself, what is the medicine? Was it the ayahuasca? Was it the shaman? Was it the shamans, the medicine people? Was it their lessons that I learned and the ways that they moved throughout the week? Was it the private healing ceremonies we did? Was it integrating with the land? What is it? And I realized it's all the medicine. It's all part of the medicine. And this earth is the medicine, and it's nourishing to us. And I find it to be so important how you clearly dissect that in your book and in your walk of life. And I believe you do it in such a way that you create that safety net for people. So when people come to you, like myself, for healing sessions, or when they're looking to come to Peru and do the medicine, they already understand the safe kind of container that you create, because you've devoted your life to listening to these plants and to the traditional ways that honor them and their message for people, for our ancestors, and also for our future.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that. I will say that most of the people who offer the plants again are well intended and come from the desire of helping. But I will say that a lot of people also in those streets that they do a lot of things together in a short time, a lot of people get wonderful experience and real transformation, and they wash away a lot of their griefs and sorrow, because the spirits of the plants are extremely generous. They will work anyway. The only thing is that there is a certain percentage of bad collaterals that happen. And there's no doubt about it. The statistics are out there. So that's the problem. Are the plants happy to do it? They will do it anyway, because that's part of the covenant of the vegetal world of humans. They will serve us and help us anyway, but are they really happy? Is the way they want to be treated?
It's a really important question for us to digest, that I really don't believe anybody around at least this location is asking that. And that's an important question to consider when going and choosing a medicine journey. And really listening to your intuition on that. And I would say to read the book. It's been such an instrumental part of my own growth and life. And in the book, you actually introduce an important differentiation between priest shamanism and warrior shamanism. What's the difference, and why is it important?
Yeah, well, sometimes when people ask, you know, in what tradition are you, or what tradition are you representing? What they are speaking more is about what can be called priest shamanism. And I mean, I'll try to define them quickly. Priest shamanism uses the sacred plants and works for the communal soul of a group of people, a society, a village, a nation. Is there to integrate and keep together on a healthy way the communal soul, the additions, all the different consciousness of the group, which is similar to the idea of religion. Is similar to the idea, that's what we talk about, shepherd and sheep and things like that. So a priest shaman will use the plants usually on a more, if you want, mild recipe, and is very much into ritual, into the conservation of the tradition and stories that define the identity of a community. A priest shaman is the one that is there to bless different moments of life, like births, marriages, funerals, the building of a house, keeps the record of things, and help again identifying and keeping, together the soul of something through the use of certain symbols or props or decoration or colors or styles of doing things, of dressing. They are the keepers of the knowledge that is the imprint of a particular society. So in those cases, we can speak definitely about traditions. And you have the traditions of the different communities. You have the traditions of the Kandoshis, of the Shipibos, of the Shapras, of the Kokamas, and they have their ways of doing. And it's about their nation. They own it, and they can share it to other people. But there is another way of approaching the plants that everywhere in every single nation and everywhere around exists, which is more about, I will say, more like lineages instead of traditions. You can speak about lineages with traditions, of course, because it's passed from master to student, or by father to son. But we talk more about lineages because warrior shamanism is done to really produce transformation in individuals and help them with strict, deep personal problems. So it's more the role of the counselor, bodyguard, lawyer, analyst, healer. So when people have a problem with a deep problem of health, when they feel that they are cursed, when they have been kind of received like an important wound, something that is like going to a doctor, to the specialist, they will look for a different kind of person that, thanks to the great spirits, exist all over. And that person will have a particular deal with the spirits and will have a different set of tools in his toolbox, whether it's a man or a woman. And the work that is done on a different way. It cannot be done on a large group like priest shamanism. It's done sometimes from one to a very, very small group, and goes way deeper, and really needs to change and move strings and break blockages and open up things that are closed, and is really like the surgeon into the spiritual. I'm calling it warrior shamanism because kind of a translation in the Quechua language that was from the Incas, and that has stayed all over, after the Inca conquest of even the northern groups. You have the word yachat, which means person of knowledge, person who knows, and is used for a way of saying the medicine person, the medicine man, the medicine woman. And I was hearing quite often with some of the people that I train the expression Sinchi Yachak. Sinchi is warrior. Because you approach things on a certain way. You are fighting against suffering in the world. You have a specific set of covenants with life, with the great spirits, about helping the world, humanity, the balance of things in a more stoic and proactive way. So I think that is an important contribution of the book because of two reasons. The first one, when people are in a very, very bad place and they are like with a very strong physical problem, a cancer, an autoimmune situation, they are feeling that life is going away, or they are extremely conflicting inside that makes them do self-destructive things, or have been cannot overcome strong mourning, the loss of something has happened in their life that everything is crumbling down and they don't know how to go out of it. What they need is to go to the warrior shaman, because this is the one who can really find where the knots are, can extract and suck out the inharmonic energies inside. But what happens is that what is shown outside, most of the shamanic services that exist out there, if you really look at the protocols that they use, what they are doing is some form, more or less faithful, more or less watered down, of priest shamanism. And that can, of course, relieve people from things. People can have mystical experiences, people can have deep cleanses and things like that, but usually it doesn't go to the depth. It doesn't have the tools to really move in one-to-one what a person needs. I came out really after, again, seeing people and hearing the stories of people that have been doing different types of work of what can be called shamanic, that they don't understand that differentiation, and they were putting great hopes in a way of working that cannot aim to the needs that they have. So I think that's an important point to reflect and to understand. There's people who, again, very honest, they say, and there's nothing you can say about it. They say, the spirit of the plant told me that I should share this with the most people I can in my life. that I really need to spread the word and share this and have ceremonies with 100 people, 150 people, and that exists, that happens, and it's great. And they are there, and they make like hurtful music, and they speak about love. Sometimes they even take a moment to speak about life and give some kind of sermon in the middle of a ceremony. Well, all that is priest shamanism, and it's good for that. But the people who go there expecting to really overcome a very, very important personal deep problem, some darkness inside, usually they just get like a nice loving rocking, but most of the time cannot really reach there. Sometimes it can, because again, the plants are very generous and they can do something. But as a general approach, we need to overcome the general hollow approach, and we need to really understand that there are specialities also in working with invisible.
Mm-hmm. So can you share a little bit about your background and what drew you to become a medicine man?
I think, first of all, that you are born as a healer, and there's a lot of children and lots of people that I meet in the US, in other countries, that you can see that they are just full of medicine, and they are like shedding medicine around, the people around them without even knowing. So people are born with medicine, different kinds and different talents. Everybody has some form of medicine. But myself, I mean, I didn't have that anything in mind when I was a kid or when I was like a young man. When I look back, of course, a lot of some of my extreme behaviors that I did, or the quest of certain things, I can see right now that they were like an unconscious quest of connecting with medicine. But I finished school. I went to a university. I was studying agronomics because I was good at science, but I was also liking a lot of nature. So because of those tests that they do, they say, oh, well, working with nature, but from a scientific approach, you can have biology, you can have agronomics and things like that. And I really enjoy very much the classes about discovering nature. I was really enjoying very much geology, botany, entomology. But then later, when things became more into production, like, again, because I was kind of in touch always, I always have seen colors when I hear music, and things like that. So I feel movement inside when I hear music. So suddenly, like, everything became dark and gray for me. It was not the joy anymore, and I feel that the turn of the courses in the last 2 years of the career brought me into a more dark place, and that was not fun anymore. Even I felt like, like a certain rejection too. But at the same time, it happens that I discover a place in the old Chinatown in Lima, who Peru has a very, very old Chinatown, as old as the San Francisco one. Actually, the coast of California and Peru, the coast of Peru, were the two places where Chinese people were brought into these fake abusive contracts to work, and they stayed and they created their culture there. So I discovered a place where we're teaching some form of traditional Kung Fu. I felt like a fish in the water, and they were teaching about energy. We call it Noi Kung in Cantonese. And I felt that, it's the age of the great passions. I was probably like 22, 23. You cannot give your heart to two things, at the same time, at least at that age. Mm-hmm. So I left, my studies, and I had a bliss, a great time, just going deeply into the world of Tai Chi and understanding the energy. And I was very much into all the healing procedures, how to put bones back in place. And basically, you have the two sides of the coin when you learn proper martial arts. Those were the heavy terrorist years in Peru, the terrorist wars and all the blackouts and the killings and the bombings. I left my house, and that's how I started my journey of connecting with, if you want, people that came from a more countryside, natural background. Because I had 5 teachers from China at the time. 3 of them were of Tai Chi. I later became, I was 2 times national champion of Tai Chi forms in Peru. Then Metropolitan champion. I went on 98 for the South American champion, and I came with a gold medal. So that it was a strange coincidence, a fortunate coincidence, that the person that was uh, the head of the social security system of Peru at the time did something quite pioneer. It was 1995. And he opens a space for traditional practices for the elder groups. Basically, it was about making the institution to save some money by having the elders do movements and things like that, so they could basically consume less pills. But I did the work very, very devoting. It was for me like a mission. And I worked very, very strong for the people, and I got good results. I was sent to the north of Peru, to the city of Trujillo, to work. I worked there for almost 10 years. And I was very involved with the people, going to the villages, to different places. I was going to all sorts of hospitals uh, and medical institutions belonging to the social security. And I guess because of my connection and my desire to help people, I was going to their houses to help with the relatives that were not in the program, staying in the little villages, in the fishermen towns. I started learning from them. They opened the door for me to learn more things. I started learning first about herbs for the body. And then later, everything started about going to natural places that for us are personalities of the landscape. They are strong personalities. Some are neutral, some are feminine, some are masculine. We're talking about mountains, corners of the desert, waterfall, lakes, rocks, certain rocks, So I kind of found myself in this world of seeing and constructing the way you connect with reality with a completely different structure, that the way we are told that life is only what moves and reproduces. And basically we're the takers, and life is at our service for solving our problems. I was very lucky to connect with these fragments of the ancient wisdom, which is very different to other forms of shamanism that I have heard that people do, that are more conceptual, even claiming to be ancestral in Peru from the Incas, other things. Maybe they are, I don't know. But what I learned was based on developing your internal perception, the subtle perception of things, and also placing yourself on an humble way so you could really receive if those personalities wanted to talk to you. It involved handling animals from a soft or from a more harsh approach, but understanding the energy of the animals by even sometimes wrestling with them, sitting with plants, even if you are not ingesting them, and basically when the plant is dry, burn it and have your hair imbibe. Sometimes I had some time, probably for a year, I had my hair long like here. And I was imbibing the hair with the fumes of the plant and asking the plants to teach me my dreams or show me things about her, how to use it, what she could do. And lots of recipes. I still have at home my herbariums and my samples and my notebooks. And it was never about doing the sacred plants until quite later. And I was a strong observancy of how you handle things, how you digest the knowledge, how you apply the practice. It's a permanent watch without necessarily being a very structural way of teaching. And I tell some interesting stories in the book. And then later, to make the story short, I spent the next 10 years after that as an independent man traveling in the North Coast, Northern jungle, Northern mountains, going on horses to some very remote sacred lakes and areas, sleeping in ruins, doing the plants in ruins, staying for a couple of weeks in different traditional, what can we call a tribe, like traditional Amazonian nations, and meeting some of the people who gave me more gifts. And at the end, we call it the art of healing because it's an art. Nobody does the same. You have to use your creativity and your intelligence to connect the different knots and make your own puzzle. And then develop your force of will and your courage to try to pierce and go through different tests until the medicine starts to stay inside of you. And then very patiently test it in your different cases and the people that you work with. And then be very faithful to the different guidance that you get from the spirits in the visions, in your dreams, or while you are working about what to do. And then I ended up as to become a member of a village in the jungle where I have my house and small property. And it's not a tribe. The people are the descendants of the tribes that were lost, 100 years ago. They don't have any more a special language. They dress with modern clothes, but they have all the practical knowledge of the jungle about the plants, the respect, the rhythms, reading the seasons, the hunting skills that have to do both with the physical and the invisible. They live with one foot into the invisible world and one foot on the material world. And I have learned how to live the same way with them. So that's kind of the story.
Well, that's beautiful. And your experience about, going with different people and learning and taking that knowledge and that wisdom and really listening to your intuition and going forward with it. It actually reminded me about what I did personally, and maybe some of the listeners can connect in terms of how I became a Hall of Fame weightlifter. So I had kind of this template of working out what seemed to be good, and I was at this point where my own knowledge just came to a head. So I went with different people who were thriving, who were really strong. And they had certain medicine to teach me about the bench press or the squat or the deadlift, or about just within all of it, how to approach the bar. And so I just listened and used my intuition and listened to my body and listened to my nature and to rhythms and my body's own rhythms, and kind of formulated my own symphony of how to execute things for myself, my own prescription, so to say. And so it's interesting how that same template for you in the medicine world and learning from different cultures, and me in terms of sports, that same template could be applied to any aspect of life. And I think what it comes down to, what I'm hearing is, as long as we have this heart posture of wanting to help, wanting to heal, wanting to grow, evolve, get better, and we are open to listening to our highest self, to spirit, then we will position ourselves to be in the right place at the right time with the right ears and the right eyes to see all these experiences and really use them in our lives to help transform others.
And that is internal placement.
Yeah.
Because you might start from a very, very good intention, but if the voices of your suffering consciousness still tell you to do it the way you want, how you want it, the way you want it, when you want it, then you will be pulled out of the warm line, that the spirits want you to be in order to have the flow and the communication.
Yeah.
You will only listen to the ghost of yourself, even if you start from a good point. So the discipline of internal placement is essential.
Yes.
And it's interesting when you speak about templates, because the way when I discovered this world and the people who wanted to share knowledge with me, it really was exactly like the way I learned from these old traditional Chinese people. Because there were no promises, and there was not a structural template that you sign in for and then you follow. You could at any time slip out of the line, and they will share with you what they want to share. And some days we were more happy, or they were in a better mood and they were sharing more. Some days they didn't want to really go into that because they were into the process. And we just stayed hanging out together as friends without asking, just staying in silence, becoming like a sidekick, and celebrating the friendship.
Yeah.
Without asking questions.
That's important. And now that shows the role of humanity and how it shows itself in every situation. And the best thing that we can do is just honor somebody and love them no matter where they are. And things will unfold in time.
Yeah.
We'll get whatever lessons we need in that time.
Yeah.
So Hachumuck, how do you see the role of shamanism and evolving in today's world?
I only can speak from what I encounter on my practice. I don't read books about shamanism. I have never read one single book about shamanism. It's a message that I got many years ago. Not do the plants outside of Peru. Don't do a lot of other things on my personal discipline. But I think it was something about probably just participate in the general discussion with a fresh view from my experience. I I found a lot of things to still learn and discover and understand that I'm not trying to look so much, although I'm happy to hear other people's experiences. So I'm not the proper person to have an overview about all what is going on, but I speak with a lot of people that I know and they tell me stories and they tell me things. So I will say that again, I think the sacred plants are here to stay. And of course, there's such a decay of the spiritual approach and I will not say, I don't want to be too harsh with saying the failure of institutional religion, but anyway, now that the communication is so fast and so many opinions and informations, valuable things that are on the table at the same time, we can all conclude that institutional religion needs to be clean, self-clean, and make like an humble recognition, self-recognition, and talking about most of them.
Mm-hmm.
And recognize that most of the conflicts in humanity come because of the clash of the strong beliefs about cosmology and the purpose and the self-view of certain communities. So it's a very kind of deep subject. But in terms of what we can call natural medicine or shamanism, that sees the world as the garden of the Great Spirit, in which we are all independent flowers with our own colors and perfumes, and we can contribute to the beauty of it while healing it and protecting, without turning our backs to the necessary cycles of creation and destruction that are part of the renewal of nature, and things that we probably will never understand with our small capacities. But at least we can enjoy it and we can participate of its flow. So in that sense, certainly more and more people will be looking for this kind of uncompromised, open gate form of spirituality. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
What will happen with the medicine? That's a different point. And as you have heard me before, I'm a little radical in my views. I'm really afraid that we might miss this another chance. It's like once per century, the sacred plants come and knock at the doors of humanity, offering again, here we are, we have this medicine. Do you want to work with us? Do you want to hear us? And we have progressively basically take them and then twist them and use them for self-gratification again and self-indulgence. We have right now is a very interesting time because we have a lot of this, a lot of, again, different parts of the palette. I think the amount of children that are born with medicine are huge. I think that the last two generations are amazing in terms of possibilities of doing self-work and kind of trying to sense what is really important and try to push away what is really destructive and superficial. I'm not extremely critical of the new generations. I speak with a lot of young people, and I think there are great opportunities there. So I think the future is that we are going to hear more and more, and a lot of skeptic people, a lot of heavy takers that are still very much into their selfish gratification are going to hear more and more, are going to be poked more by the presence of the medicine in their culture. And I guess that at the same time, we have the greatest dangerous position against nature because we have got so much destructive power in our hands. We are far away from being like a healthy collective society. So I guess the future is that we are going to hear more about it, and we'll have to work more about it, and we'll have to try to protect the safety of the medicine and the safety of the spirits, and pass it to the ears that want to hear about it. And
Yeah.
it's such a large topic, to talk about.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think you can be any more accurate than you are in terms of, organized religion. And not saying anything bad about it necessarily. I grew up with organized religion and grew up Pentecostal, but when we look at what's happened throughout the centuries with organized religion in general, it's been to control the people rather than forming a relationship with what is God and what is consciousness and what is universal law, and really embodying that. And a lot of times it's been a fear-based approach, or just a checklist of traditions to follow with really unbeknownst reason, just because it was the way that it was. And I've found in owning, the wellness center, Hope Healing Oasis, and seeing what's happened, especially in the last 20 years, but especially since COVID, is that people are looking for a real connection. And with everything that's happened on social media and this fast-paced world and all this Wi-Fi and all this noise, people are looking for spirit. They're looking for simplicity. They're looking for a sense of being grounded, because there's so much congestion and fear pulling us in all directions all the time. Even if you don't have TV and don't watch the news, such as myself, I haven't had it in 10 years, but I could still feel the vibration coming off of people. And I think this is what is leading people to look into shamanism, which is really just to look into connecting with the earth, with themselves, with each other. And I feel that the challenge is that right now we're coming into this precipice, at least in Connecticut, that within a year, psilocybin is going to be legal, MDMA is going to be legal, ketamine is legal, and a lot of nature's, the Amazon is nature's pharmacies, right? There's like over 200,000 plants, and we extract their medicinal properties, isolate them, and make medication, which causes, which has its challenges. So the challenge I also see is that, again, we've talked about shamanism and being commercialized and selling tickets. It's the same thing, the same challenge, the same problem and challenge is at hand, is that once the pharmaceutical company gets a hold of these medicines, how are they going to be dealt with? Are they going to be perverted? And so this is a thing as Westerners and this time in nature to just really be cautious of, because it's important to be cautious of what kind of container we're doing the medicine in, which we've talked about, a small sacred container rather than 20 hundreds of people. This could be a detriment, but it's the same thing with what is happening with the plants. And it's important just to keep our eyes and our spirits open, and to really go back to basics and understand the purpose of these plants and the purpose for their healing, which again is why your book is so profound at this moment in history, because it teaches us to journey through the visible and the invisible that we're dealing with all the time, whether somebody comes to you in Peru or people are journeying through the invisible in their everyday lives and just trying to navigate with your intuition. So
yeah, I think that the process of deconstructing the extractive, hyper-paced technological society has to be very slow. We cannot really unwind things, fast. We cannot turn our backs to the great benefits of technology. But what we need to do is to slowly acknowledge more and more the presence of the invisible reality, which is the real reality. And by that, in 3 or 4 generations, we start to probably have some interesting social leaders, social geniuses that will have proposals that will help us.
Yeah.
But right now we need to just kind of be conscious of the invisible. That's the seed for starting the whole transformation.
So that leads me to my next and final question. So what are your hopes for the future of shamanism and its place in global spiritual practices?
Yeah, well, shamanism, we are talking about the the traditional medicine, but also the traditional mindset or the ancient is, I mean, it's basically the way our ancestors survived for probably 200,000 years. And I guess is we won't be able to stop the damage from the clash of the cultures when hungry capitalism clashes with the traditional world, and I see that in the Amazon. I see it in the location and in the villages around. And what we need to do is basically to try to become more mature in discriminating things, not swallow, not only about services or marketing, but also not swallowing beliefs. I think that there's too much beliefs that are somehow hardening our capacity to connect, making us, what I mean is we become too stiff. Beliefs make our consciousness too stiff. And so it's sad for me when I see that people take some amazing fragments of the ancient American medicine, the whole Americas, and then suddenly they present it with a full conceptualized mental frame, as if you have to do this and the initiation of this and this, that. They are again repeating the same mistake. They are over conceptualizing something that actually is based on perception, on uniqueness, and on humbleness. So it's basically about developing more our criteria of discriminating and understanding what is out there. Stop also looking too far away. The last chapter, the ninth chapter of the book is about what to do in your backyard, basically. And also be more attentive to not to swallow beliefs that are imposed into others. You want to escape a certain hardened cosmology that is based on guilt. And then you replace it by another cosmology that you don't have any idea if it is right or wrong, it's somebody else's construct. So that's kind of the big maturity that in a collective way humanity needs to get. And some people get it, but in a more wide spread, we are still struggling with it collectively. We cannot be replacing one belief by another belief because beliefs belong to the space of the suffering consciousness. There are artificial rocks to cross the swamp. What we need to do is to learn to swim.
I love that. So Hachumuck, where can people find you? Where can they find your book? Where can they find you?
Well, the book is there out on Amazon and other things. There's like versions in audiobooks and different formats. Myself, I don't have a landing page, a website yet. I'm shy to be out there, like be taken by the flow of strong marketing. So just basically by word to mouth. And if we have to connect, we'll connect.
Sounds good. And if you're, just interested in learning more about Hachumuck or connecting with him, well, we see him when we can at Haute Healing Oasis. So be sure to message us with your questions. And I loved the audiobook as well. So I think the
guy did a great work.
He did amazing. A great work.
Yeah, we worked together with the pronunciation of certain things. He did an amazing work.
He did. So thank you so much for joining us tonight on our podcast, You Are the Medicine. Thank you for sharing your knowledge, your wisdom, your heart, the posture in which you approach life with us. I know for this moment in time, I've got wrapped up in the invisible, which is visible. And I really appreciate all the healing that you've imparted into my life and into my business and my family. So
thank you.
I can't thank you enough. And thank you, listeners. Be sure to just follow us on YouTube, You Are the Medicine, and on Instagram at Haute Healing Oasis. And check out our blogs on our website. I'll write a blog about this interview as well. And be sure to check out Hachumuck's book, Journey to the Invisible, Journey Through the Invisible. Thank you so much. God bless you. Satnam. Thank you.